My name is Jasmine Carter, and I'm 28 years old. Last Thanksgiving, my mom organized a massive family dinner with 47 relatives crammed into our family home, complete with printed name cards, a catered buffet, and a professional photographer she hired to capture every perfect moment. There was just one small problem. My chair didn't have a name card. My achievements weren't mentioned in her toast. And when Aunt Beverly asked where I was, my mom looked right past me and said, "Oh, Jasmine couldn't make it this year." I was standing 3 feet away from her, holding a dish I'd spent 4 hours making that morning. That was the moment I realized I wasn't part of this family anymore. I was just a ghost they'd stopped seeing years ago. But here's the thing about being invisible. Nobody notices when you're quietly collecting evidence, documenting everything, and planning something that will make them wish they'd seen you all along. Because what I did next didn't just ruin one dinner. It exposed secrets that shattered my mother's perfect family image forever. Do you want to know how being treated like a stranger in my own home turned into the revenge that made 47 people question everything they thought they knew about my mother? Stay until the end, and you'll see exactly how I made sure she could never pretend I didn't exist again. If this story already has you hooked, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because these real-life revenge stories only get more intense from here. Trust me, you won't want to miss how this unfolds. The problems with my mom started long before that Thanksgiving dinner, but I didn't really understand the pattern until I was old enough to see it clearly. Growing up in our house in Charlotte, North Carolina, everything revolved around appearances. My mother, Patricia Ann Carter, worked as a real estate agent for luxury properties, which meant our home had to look like something straight out of a magazine at all times. Fresh flowers in crystal vases. Furniture nobody was allowed to sit on. White carpets made me nervous every time I walked across them. My older sister, Vanessa, and younger sister, Heather, seemed to understand the rules instinctively. They knew how to smile at the right moments, say polite things, and pose for the endless photos Mom posted on her social media accounts. They looked good in pictures. They made our family look successful, put together, enviable. I didn't fit that image. I was the middle child, the one who preferred reading books in my room over attending Mom's charity luncheons. The one who got anxious at big gatherings and said awkward things when relatives asked about my plans. The one who chose a degree in social work instead of something impressive like law or medicine. From the time I was about 12, I started noticing how conversations would shift when I entered a room. How Mom's smile would tighten slightly when I contributed to discussions. How my accomplishments, like making the honor roll or winning a writing contest, would get a brief, "That's nice, honey," while Vanessa's volleyball trophies got framed and displayed in the living room. By the time I was in college, the distance had grown into a canyon I couldn't cross. Mom stopped asking about my classes. Stopped inviting me to family events with the same enthusiasm. Started introducing me to her friends with a dismissive, "This is my daughter Jasmine," before quickly changing the subject to Vanessa's engagement or Heather's internship at a prestigious firm. I told myself it didn't matter. I built a life away from that house, working at a nonprofit helping foster children, sharing a small apartment with my best friend Keisha, and trying not to think too hard about why my own mother seemed embarrassed by my existence. But then Thanksgiving 2024 happened, and everything that had been simmering beneath the surface exploded in the most devastating way possible. The invitation came through a family group chat 3 weeks before the holiday. Mom had sent a long, excited message about hosting the biggest Carter family reunion in 20 years at our house. She'd been planning it for months, apparently coordinating with aunts, uncles, cousins, and even some distant relatives I'd never met. The message included a detailed schedule, arrival times, seating arrangements, a slideshow presentation about family legacy and achievements, and a request for everyone to submit their favorite family photos and recent accomplishments to be featured. I read through it twice, my stomach tightening. She hadn't mentioned any of this to me directly. Not a phone call, not a text, nothing. Just this mass announcement that assumed I'd show up and play along. I responded in the group chat, "Sounds great, Mom. What can I bring?" The response came 6 hours later, a brief, "Just yourself is fine." That should have been my first warning sign, but I pushed the unease aside. Maybe she was just busy with planning. Maybe I was being too sensitive. Maybe this reunion would actually be a chance to reconnect, to feel like part of the family again. I spent the week before Thanksgiving preparing a homemade sweet potato casserole, my grandmother's recipe that I'd perfected over years. It took 4 hours of peeling, mashing, seasoning, and carefully arranging the marshmallow topping. I imagined Mom's face when she tasted it, remembered her own mother, maybe softened toward me a little. I also bought a new dress, something elegant but not too flashy, wanting to fit in with whatever image she was creating. I practiced smiling in the mirror, rehearsed conversation starters, and told myself this time would be different. Thanksgiving morning arrived cold and gray, the November sky heavy with clouds that threatened rain. I loaded my casserole carefully into my car, checking 3 times that it was secure on the passenger seat. The drive to my childhood home took 30 minutes, and with every mile, my anxiety grew. I kept running through scenarios in my head. What if everyone ignored me? What if Mom asked me to help in the kitchen the whole time and I missed the actual gathering? What if Vanessa and Heather had inside jokes I wasn't part of? By the time I pulled into the driveway, my hands were shaking slightly on the steering wheel. The house looked transformed. White lights draped along the porch railings. A professional-looking banner hanging over the door that read Carter Family Reunion 2024 in gold lettering. Through the windows, I could see people already moving around inside, the house packed with bodies and noise. I took a deep breath, grabbed my casserole, and walked up the front steps. The moment I opened the door, the wall of sound hit me. Laughter, conversations overlapping, children shrieking as they ran through the hallways, and underneath it all, the clinking of glasses and plates. The house smelled incredible: roasted turkey, fresh bread, cinnamon, and something sweet I couldn't identify. I stepped inside, balancing my dish carefully, and looked around for Mom. She was in the center of the living room, wearing a cream-colored dress that probably cost more than my month's rent, her hair perfectly styled, her makeup flawless. She was hugging an older woman I vaguely recognized as a second cousin, her laugh bright and performative. Jasmine. Aunt Beverly's voice cut through the noise. She was my father's sister, one of the few relatives who'd always been kind to me. She rushed over, pulling me into a warm hug that made my throat tight. "I'm so glad you made it. Your mom said you might not be able to come." I blinked. She said what? Beverly waved her hand. "Oh, you know how she is. Always worried about everyone's schedules. Here, let me take that dish. It looks amazing." She disappeared toward the kitchen before I could process what she'd said. Mom had told people I might not come? I hadn't been unsure at all. I'd confirmed it in the group chat. Unless she'd been hoping I wouldn't show up. The thought settled in my chest like a stone, heavy and cold. I moved through the crowded house, trying to find my place. The dining room had been expanded with extra tables pushed together, covered in white tablecloths and decorated with elaborate centerpieces. And there, at each seat, were small printed name cards in elegant script. I walked slowly along the tables, reading names. Vanessa, Heather, Mom, Dad, Aunt Beverly, Uncle James, cousins I barely knew, extended family members I'd never met. Every single seat had a name. Except one. At the far end of the corner table, pushed slightly away from the others, was a chair with no name card. Just an empty space where a card should have been. My stomach dropped. That had to be a mistake. Mom wouldn't deliberately leave my name off. I looked around for her, but she was across the room now, posing for photos with a group of relatives, her arm around Vanessa, both of them smiling like catalog models. I approached Heather instead. She was 24, dressed in a burgundy dress that matched Mom's color scheme perfectly, scrolling through her phone near the fireplace. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "I think there's a mistake with the name cards. Mine's missing." Heather glanced up, her expression briefly confused, then carefully neutral. "Oh, I think Mom handled all that. You should ask her." There was something in her tone. Something that made me realize this wasn't a mistake at all. "Heather, what's going on?" "Nothing," she said quickly. "It's just, there were a lot of people to coordinate." Maybe she ran out of cards or something. But she wouldn't meet my eyes. Before I could press further, Mom's voice rang out across the room. "Everyone, can I have your attention, please?" The noise died down. People turned toward her, drinks in hand, children shushed by their parents. Mom stood at the head of the main table, beaming, looking like a queen addressing her subjects. "I just want to say how grateful I am that all of you could be here today," she began, her voice warm and practiced. "This family means everything to me, and seeing everyone together like this, 3 generations under one roof, is truly a blessing." People murmured agreement. Someone started clapping and others joined in. "I especially want to thank my daughters," Mom continued, gesturing toward Vanessa and Heather. Vanessa, who's getting married next spring to a wonderful man, and Heather, who just got promoted to senior analyst at her firm. "I'm so proud of both of you." My heart stopped. Both of you. Not all 3 of you. Not my daughters, plural, including me. Just the 2 of them. I was standing right there, 10 feet away from her. Close enough that if she'd glanced in my direction, she would have seen me. But she didn't glance. She kept talking, listing off achievements and funny family stories, and not once did my name come up. Not once did she acknowledge my presence. Aunt Beverly appeared beside me again, her face troubled. "Honey, I thought you said you were coming. Your mom told me this morning that you couldn't make it this year." She seemed really disappointed. The words hit me like a physical blow. She'd told people, this morning, while I was on my way here with my grandmother's recipe in my car, that I wasn't coming. She'd written me out of the narrative before I'd even arrived. "I'm here," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'm right here." Beverly's eyes widened with understanding, then filled with pity. That look, more than anything else, broke something inside me. I wasn't invisible by accident. I was invisible by design. My mother had deliberately erased me from this reunion, from the family story she was telling, from the perfect image she was creating. And worst of all, she was doing it while I stood in the same room, breathing the same air, watching her pretend I didn't exist. That's when I made my decision. If she wanted to treat me like a ghost, fine. But ghosts can see everything, hear everything, access everything. And I was about to use that invisibility to expose every secret she'd worked so hard to hide. The dinner itself was torture in slow motion. When it came time to eat, I tried to find a seat at the unnamed chair, but my cousin's boyfriend had already taken it, pulled it closer to the main table, and was chatting comfortably with people on either side. Nobody had saved me a spot. Nobody seemed to notice I was there at all. I ended up squeezing into a space at the kids' table, sitting between my 7-year-old second cousin who kept kicking the table leg and a teenage nephew who ignored me completely while playing games on his phone. From this angle, I could see Mom at the head of the main table, laughing and gesturing animatedly, completely in her element. Vanessa sat to her right, Heather to her left, the 3 of them forming a perfect triangle of family togetherness that didn't include me. The sweet potato casserole I'd brought never made it to the main table. I saw it briefly in the kitchen, shoved to the back of the counter behind store-bought pies and a catered dessert display. Nobody served it. Nobody mentioned it. For hours of work, my grandmother's legacy was treated like an afterthought that didn't deserve space among the real food. I picked at my plate, my appetite gone, trying to swallow past the lump in my throat. Around me, conversations flowed. People caught up on jobs, kids, vacations, health issues. Normal family stuff. But nobody asked me anything. When I tried to contribute, mentioning something about my work at the nonprofit, the conversation simply moved on as if I hadn't spoken. It was like being erased in real time. After dinner, Mom announced the slideshow presentation. Everyone gathered in the living room, kids sitting on the floor, adults filling the couches and standing along the walls. The lights dimmed. The first slide appeared on the TV screen, a photo of Mom and Dad on their wedding day, young and smiling, the caption reading where it all began. The presentation was professionally done. Someone had clearly spent hours editing this, selecting photos, adding captions, choosing the perfect sentimental music to play underneath. Slide after slide showed family milestones. Vanessa's graduation. Heather's volleyball championships, cousins' weddings, babies being born, family vacations to beaches and mountains. Our family legacy, the title slide read. And I wasn't in any of it. Oh, there were old photos where I appeared, group shots from when I was a kid, but the captions never mentioned my name. The Carter sisters at Christmas 1998 showed all three of us, but only Vanessa and Heather were named in the description. A photo from my college graduation was there, but cropped so tightly that I was barely visible in the corner, the focus on Mom and Dad smiling at the camera. Recent years? I'd been completely edited out. Photos I knew had included me were now magically just Mom, Vanessa, and Heather. Or they'd been replaced entirely with pictures from events I hadn't been invited to. The room was quiet except for occasional murmurs of appreciation and nostalgia. When the slideshow ended, people applauded. Mom stood up, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue, playing the emotional matriarch role perfectly. "Family is everything," she said, her voice thick with fake tears. "These memories, these people, this is what life is really about." Aunt Beverly's hand found mine in the darkness. She squeezed it gently, a silent acknowledgement of what had just happened. But she didn't say anything. Nobody did. Because calling it out would have meant admitting that my mother had just publicly erased me from the family history in front of 47 witnesses, and that was too uncomfortable for anyone to address. I excused myself to the bathroom, locked the door, and stood there staring at my reflection in the mirror. My eyes were red. My hands were shaking. My whole body felt like it was vibrating with a mix of rage and grief, so intense I thought I might throw up. I pulled out my phone and opened the camera. "It's Thanksgiving," I whispered to myself in the recording. "I'm at my mom's house. There are 47 people here for a family reunion she planned for months. She told relatives I wasn't coming. There's no name card for me at dinner. I'm sitting at the kids' table. She didn't mention me in her speech. And she just showed a slideshow about our family legacy where I've been completely edited out of the narrative." My voice cracked. I'm standing in the bathroom of my childhood home, and I feel like I don't exist. I saved the video and stared at it for a long moment. Then I opened my Files app and created a new folder. I labeled it Evidence. That video went in first. But it wouldn't be the last. When I came out of the bathroom, I found Vanessa in the hallway, touching up her lipstick in the decorative mirror. "Hey," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Can we talk for a minute?" She glanced at me, then back at her reflection. "About what?" "About what just happened. The slideshow. The name cards. All of it." Vanessa sighed, capping her lipstick. "Look, I don't want to get into this right now. Mom worked really hard on this event." "I know she did. That's exactly the problem. She worked hard to erase me from it." "You're being dramatic," Vanessa said, her tone dismissive. "Not everything is about you, Jasmine." The casual cruelty of it took my breath away. I'm not asking for everything to be about me. I'm asking why I'm being treated like I don't exist. "Maybe because you never really fit in here," Vanessa said, finally looking at me directly. "You chose a different path. You don't care about the things Mom cares about. You don't make an effort to be part of things. So yeah, maybe you're not as central to the family story as the rest of us. That's not Mom's fault." She walked away before I could respond, leaving me standing alone in the hallway with those words echoing in my head. The rest of the evening blurred together. I stayed because leaving would have felt like admitting defeat. I watched people eat dessert, watched kids run around hyped up on sugar, watched Mom pose for more photos with everyone except me. At one point, a professional photographer approached me. "Can I get your name for the photo roster?" he asked, pen poised over his clipboard. Before I could answer, Mom appeared at his elbow. "Oh, she's not part of the official family photos," she said smoothly. "She's just visiting. Just visiting. In the house I grew up in. At a family reunion." The photographer nodded and moved on. Mom didn't even look at me. By the time people started leaving around 9 p.m., I was numb. Exhausted from pretending I was okay. From smiling through the pain. From existing in a space where I'd been made to feel like an intruder. I helped clean up because nobody asked me to, but also nobody told me not to. I washed dishes in silence while Heather and Vanessa chatted in the next room about their upcoming holiday plans, Plans that clearly didn't include me. Mom eventually came into the kitchen, her heels clicking on the tile floor. "Oh, Jasmine, you don't need to do that," she said, in the same tone she'd use with a helpful neighbor. "You should probably get going. It's getting late. It's getting late." Not, "Thank you for coming." Not, "I'm glad you were here." Just a polite dismissal. I dried my hands on a towel and turned to face her. For a moment, I almost said something. I almost asked why. Almost demanded an explanation for the cruelty I'd endured all day. But looking at her face, perfectly composed, completely unbothered by my pain, I realized something important. She knew exactly what she was doing. This wasn't accidental neglect. This wasn't an oversight. This was deliberate, calculated erasure. And she expected me to just accept it. To disappear quietly. To stop existing in the family narrative without making a scene. So I smiled. "You're right," I said. "I should go. Thank you for having me." Something flickered in her eyes. Surprise maybe, or satisfaction. She'd won, and we both knew it. I collected my casserole dish from the kitchen, still full, still untouched. I walked through the house one more time, past the banner and the decorations and the happy families still lingering in the living room. Got into my car, placed the dish in the passenger seat, and sat there in the darkness for a long time. The tears came then. Not quiet, dignified tears. Loud, ugly, body-shaking sobs that left me gasping for air. I cried for the little girl who'd tried so hard to make her mother proud. For the teenager who'd been slowly pushed to the margins. For the adult who'd hoped, stupidly, that things might change. But underneath the grief, something else was growing. Something cold and sharp and absolutely certain. My mother had made her choice. She'd chosen her perfect image over her own daughter. She'd chosen cruelty over kindness. And she'd done it publicly, in front of 47 people, documenting it all in photos and slideshows and memory books. Fine. If she wanted documentation, I'd give her documentation. I pulled out my phone and opened a new note. At the top, I wrote, "Things Mom doesn't know I know." Then I started typing. Because here's the thing about being invisible for years. You see everything. You hear everything. You learn everyone's secrets. And my mother had a lot of secrets. Secrets about money. About affairs. About lies she'd told to maintain her perfect reputation. Secrets that would destroy the carefully constructed image she valued more than her own child. I'd spent my whole life trying to earn her love. Now I was going to spend my energy making her regret taking it away. The drive home that night took forever, even though it was only 30 minutes. I kept replaying every moment of the dinner in my head, each humiliation like a fresh cut. By the time I reached my apartment, it was almost midnight. Keisha was waiting up, sitting on the couch with a mug of tea, her face full of concern. "How bad?" she asked as I walked in. I couldn't even answer. Just collapsed next to her and cried again while she held me, not saying anything, just being present in a way my family never had been. Later, after the tears stopped and I could breathe normally again, I told her everything. Every detail. The missing name card. The slideshow erasure. Vanessa's cutting words. Mom's casual dismissal. "That's abuse," Keisha said flatly when I finished. "I know you don't want to hear that about your own mother, but emotional neglect and deliberate exclusion? That's abuse." "I know," I whispered. "I've known for a while. I just kept hoping she'd change. Hoping she'd see you. Hoping she'd love you the way you deserved." Keisha squeezed my hand. "But she's not going to. And you can't keep setting yourself on fire to keep her warm." "I'm done trying," I said, and meant it. "I'm so done." "Good. So, what are you going to do?" That's when I told her about the evidence folder. About the plan that had been forming in my head during the drive home. About the secrets I knew. Keisha listened, her eyes widening, and when I finished, she said, "That's nuclear. You know that, right? This will blow up your entire family." "My family blew up tonight," I said. "They just haven't realized it yet." The next morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. No more hoping. No more trying to fix something that was broken by design. Just action. I sat at my laptop and started organizing everything I knew. First, the obvious evidence from Thanksgiving itself. I had my video from the bathroom. I took screenshots of the family group chat, showing Mom's invitation and my confirmation. I scrolled through Mom's social media and found dozens of photos from the reunion already posted, complete with captions about all my family together and blessed with these amazing people. I wasn't in a single photo. I screenshot every post, every comment, every like. Then I went deeper. I opened the folder on my computer where I'd been unconsciously collecting evidence for years without realizing it. There were emails from Mom canceling plans with me at the last minute. Text messages where she'd forgotten my birthday 3 years in a row. Photos from family events I'd attended but been cropped out of later. But the real ammunition was in the secrets. Things I'd learned over the years by being the invisible daughter who nobody thought was paying attention. Secret number 1. The money. Mom had inherited $150,000 from her own mother 5 years ago. She'd told the whole family she was splitting it equally between her 3 daughters, $50,000 each. Vanessa and Heather got their checks. I never got mine. When I'd asked about it, months later, Mom had claimed she'd put my share in a trust fund for when I was more financially stable. But I'd accidentally seen her bank statements once when checking her email at her request. There was no trust fund. She'd spent my inheritance on renovations to the house and a luxury vacation to Europe. She'd stolen from me and lied about it. Secret number 2, the affair. 3 years ago, Dad had suspected Mom of having an affair with her business partner, a man named Gerald who owned the real estate company with her. They'd almost divorced over it. Mom had sworn up and down it was just business, that Dad was being paranoid, that she would never betray him like that. The family had rallied around her, including me, telling Dad he was being unreasonable. But I knew the truth. I'd gone to drop something off at Mom's office one evening and seen them through the window, Gerald and Mom, kissing in the conference room, his hands in her hair, her pressed against the desk. I'd left without saying anything, convinced myself I'd misunderstood, buried it deep because acknowledging it would have destroyed our family. Mom never knew I'd seen. Never knew there was a witness to her lie. Secret number 3, the fraud. Mom's real estate business was built on a reputation for honesty and integrity. Patricia Carter, your trusted guide home, her slogan read. But 6 months ago, I overheard her on the phone with Gerald, discussing how they'd manipulated property inspections to hide major issues with a house they'd sold to a young couple. Foundation problems, water damage, electrical issues all covered up with cosmetic fixes and falsified reports. That couple had a baby. They'd trusted my mother to help them find a safe home. And she'd sold them a disaster for the commission. I'd thought about reporting it then. But family loyalty, that stupid, poisonous loyalty, had kept me quiet. Not anymore. I spent the entire weekend building a comprehensive document. Every secret. Every lie. Every piece of evidence I could gather. I reached out to Dad, casually asking if he remembered that inheritance from Grandma. Of course, he said on the phone. Your mom split it between you girls. You used yours for your nonprofit work, right? Right, I lied, my stomach churning. So he didn't know. Mom had lied to him too. I contacted the couple who'd bought the house with the hidden problems. Found them through public property records, social media, the way any determined person can find anyone these days. Send them a careful, anonymous email asking if they'd experienced any issues with their home. Their response came back within hours. Pages and pages of nightmare stories. Thousands in repairs. Fights with insurance. A baby getting sick from mold they'd found in the walls. And their lawyer told them they had no recourse because the inspection had cleared everything. I screenshot everything. Added it to my file. By Monday morning, I had a 40-page document that read like an indictment. Clear. Factual. Devastating. Keisha read through it that evening, her face getting paler with each page. Jesus, Jasmine. Your mom is going to lose everything. Her business, her reputation, maybe even her marriage. I know, I said. You're sure? Keisha asked. Once you do this, there's no taking it back. This will end your relationship with your family completely. Your sisters will hate you. Your extended family will probably side with her. You'll be alone. I thought about that chair with no name card. About standing 3 feet from my mother while she told someone I wasn't there. About 28 years of being made to feel like I wasn't enough, wasn't worth loving, wasn't worth seeing. I'm already alone, I said. At least this way, everyone will know why. The next question was how to release it. I couldn't just post it publicly. That would look vindictive, might even get me in legal trouble. It had to be strategic. Had to be undeniable. I had to hit where it hurt most. Mom's reputation. I decided to start with Dad. He deserved to know the truth about the money and the affair. I formatted the relevant sections of my document, printed them out, and put them in an envelope. On Wednesday evening, I drove to his office, knowing Mom wouldn't be there, and handed it to him directly. "What's this?" he asked, confused. "The truth," I said. "About a lot of things. You should read it in private." "And Dad? I'm sorry you had to find out this way. But I couldn't keep protecting her anymore." His face changed as he looked at the envelope, some part of him already knowing this wouldn't be good news. "Jasmine, read it," I said. "Then decide if you want to talk." I left before he could argue. The next target was the couple with the house. I'd already connected with them anonymously. Now I sent them a more detailed email with evidence of the inspection fraud, copies of text messages between Mom and Gerald that I'd found on her laptop during a visit months ago, names of people who could corroborate the timeline. Within 24 hours, they'd contacted a lawyer. Within 48, there was a fraud investigation opened against Mom's company. Then came the extended family. Aunt Beverly first, because she'd been kind to me. I sent her a carefully worded message explaining everything that had happened, attaching the photos Mom had cropped me out of, the evidence of the inheritance theft, copies of family group chats where plans were made without including me. "I'm not asking you to pick sides," I wrote. "I'm just asking you to see what I've been living with, and to understand why I have to step away from this family now." Her response came quickly. "Oh, honey, I had no idea it was this bad. I'm so sorry. I saw things at Thanksgiving, but I didn't realize the extent. Your mother is going to have to answer for this." More family members got similar messages. Not all of them. Just the ones I thought might actually care. The ones who'd shown me kindness over the years. I wasn't trying to turn the whole family against Mom. I was just making sure there were witnesses to the truth. People who couldn't claim they didn't know. By the end of the second week, things were moving fast. Dad had confronted Mom about the inheritance. She'd apparently tried to lie, then broke down and admitted she'd borrowed it, promised to pay it back. But the trust was broken. He'd moved into a hotel. The fraud investigation was public record now. Local news had picked up the story about the real estate company under investigation for falsifying inspection reports. Mom's business phone was ringing nonstop with angry clients and canceled contracts. And then came the call I'd been waiting for. Vanessa, her voice shaking with rage. "What did you do?" "I told the truth," I said calmly. "You destroyed Mom's life. You destroyed our family." "No, Vanessa. Mom destroyed our family when she decided I didn't matter. I just made sure everyone could see it." "You're sick," she hissed. "You're selfish and vindictive, and I'm done being invisible," I interrupted. "I spent 28 years trying to be good enough for her. For all of you. And last Thanksgiving, at that dinner with 47 people, Mom made it clear I never would be. So yeah, I decided to stop pretending. I decided to stop protecting her. And if that makes me the villain in your story, I can live with that." "We will never forgive you for this," Vanessa said. "Good," I replied. "Because I will never forgive you for watching her erase me and saying nothing." I hung up. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. From relief. From the pure, powerful feeling of finally standing up for myself. The fallout spread like wildfire over the next month. Mom's real estate business collapsed. Between the fraud investigation, the lawsuits from previous clients who were now coming forward with their own complaints, and the damage to her reputation, the company was finished. Gerald threw her under the bus immediately, claiming he'd known nothing about any fraudulent practices, producing emails where he'd supposedly raised concerns that Mom had overruled. Whether that was true or just him covering his own skin didn't matter. The blame landed on her. Her social media, once full of carefully curated images of success and family happiness, turned into a nightmare. People commented on every post, even the old ones, calling her a fraud, a liar, a terrible mother. She deleted her accounts eventually, but not before thousands of people had seen the truth. The screenshots lived forever. Dad filed for divorce. Not just because of the money or the affair, though those were huge, but because, as he told me in a late-night phone call, I looked back at all those family photos, all those events, and I finally saw what she'd been doing to you. And I realized I'd let it happen. I'd been so focused on keeping the peace, on not rocking the boat, that I'd failed you as a father. I'm sorry, Jasmine. I'm so sorry. That call made me cry harder than anything else. Not because of Mom's downfall, but because my father finally saw me. Vanessa and Heather stopped speaking to me completely. They sent a joint email saying I was no longer part of their lives, that I'd chosen revenge over family, that they hoped I was happy destroying everything Mom had built. I read it once, felt a pang of sadness for the sisters I'd once hoped to have real relationships with, then deleted it and moved on. The extended family split. Some people believed Mom's version of events, where I was a troubled, jealous daughter who deliberately sabotaged her out of spite. Others saw the evidence for what it was and quietly reached out to offer support. Aunt Beverly became a regular part of my life, meeting me for coffee every week, helping me process the grief and anger. Your mother is telling everyone you fabricated evidence, she warned me once. That you photoshopped documents and made up stories because you were jealous of your sisters. Let her say what she wants, I replied. The fraud investigation isn't based on my evidence. That couple's lawyer isn't working on my Photoshop skills. Dad didn't leave because I made things up. The truth has its own weight. And it did. The truth came out in pieces from multiple sources, undeniable and damning. The inheritance theft became part of the divorce proceedings. The inspection fraud resulted in criminal charges. The affair, while not illegal, was exposed through the divorce discovery process and became public knowledge in our small community. 3 months after Thanksgiving, I got a call from Heather. Not Vanessa. Just Heather. Her voice was small when I answered. I need to talk to you, she said. I almost hung up. Almost protected myself from whatever new accusation or guilt trip she was about to deliver. But something in her tone made me listen. Okay. I found something, Heather said. In Mom's office. A journal she kept. Jasmine, I didn't know. I mean, I knew she treated you differently, but I didn't know she'd been planning it. That she'd been deliberately excluding you from things, editing you out of photos, telling people you weren't coming to events. She wrote about it. About how you didn't fit the family image she wanted. About how it was easier to just remove you from the narrative. The silence stretched between us. Why are you telling me this? I finally asked. Because I read what you sent to Aunt Beverly. All of it. And I kept telling myself you were exaggerating, that you were being dramatic, that Mom loved all of us equally. But then I found her journal and I realized you'd been telling the truth the whole time. And God, Jasmine, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I didn't see it. I'm so sorry I didn't stand up for you. I'm sorry I let her do this to you for years and told myself it wasn't my problem. She was crying now. I could hear it in her voice. Part of me wanted to comfort her. The old part, the part that had always tried to keep the peace, to make everyone else feel better. But a stronger part, the part that had been forged in that month of gathering evidence and choosing truth over family loyalty, stayed quiet. I don't know if you can ever forgive me, Heather continued. I don't know if we can ever have a real relationship after this. But I needed you to know that I see you now. I see what she did. And I see what we all did by letting it happen. Thank you, I said quietly. For telling me. For seeing it. Does it help? She asked. Knowing that I finally understand? I thought about that. A little. It doesn't change what happened. It doesn't undo the years of being invisible. But yes, it helps to know that I wasn't crazy. That it was real. We talked for another hour. Not fixing anything. Not making promises we couldn't keep. Just talking, honestly, for the first time in our lives. She told me she'd moved out of Mom's house, gotten her own apartment, started therapy to process what she'd learned. She didn't know if she could forgive Mom either. Vanessa's still defending her, Heather said. She won't even consider that Mom did anything wrong. She says you're the problem, that you're tearing the family apart on purpose. I know, I said. And that's her choice. Just like this was mine. After we hung up, I sat in my quiet apartment and felt something unexpected. Not quite peace. Not quite closure. But something close to it. Acceptance, maybe. Of what had happened. Of what I'd done. Of the consequences and the cost. The final piece came 6 months later. A registered letter arrived at my apartment, forwarded from my old address. Inside was a check for $50,000. My inheritance, finally, along with a brief note from Dad's lawyer explaining it had been recovered as part of the divorce settlement. No note from Mom. No apology. Just the money she'd stolen, returned without acknowledgement of the theft. I stared at that check for a long time. $50,000. The exact amount she'd told me 5 years ago was in a trust fund for my future. The amount I'd believed existed even as I struggled with student loans and rent and medical bills. Money that could have changed my life if she'd given it to me when she'd promised. I deposited the check. Then I did something that would have been unthinkable a year ago. I used part of it to expand the nonprofit's foster care program. Created a scholarship fund specifically for kids who'd been emotionally neglected by their families. Named it the Invisible Children Fund. Because I understood, now, what it meant to be unseen by the people who were supposed to love you most. And I wanted to make sure those kids knew that being invisible to your family didn't mean you were invisible to the world. The rest of the money went into savings. Not for emergencies. For therapy. For healing. For building a life completely separate from the family that had never wanted me in it. Mom tried to reach out once, about a year after everything fell apart. A short email that said simply, "We should talk." I read it. I thought about it for exactly 5 seconds. Then deleted it without responding. Some people think revenge is about making others suffer the way they made you suffer. But that's not what this was. This wasn't about hurting Mom. It was about refusing to disappear. About demanding to be seen, even if being seen meant being hated. About choosing truth over the comfortable lie that families always love their children equally. Today, almost 2 years after that Thanksgiving dinner, I have a life Mom isn't part of. A chosen family of friends who see me, who value me, who show up when it matters. A relationship with Dad that's slowly healing. Tentative, rebuilding trust with Heather. Meaningful work that makes a difference. No contact with Vanessa or Mom, and I'm okay with that. Some relationships aren't meant to be repaired. Some people will never admit they were wrong. And forcing yourself to maintain those connections out of obligation or guilt only makes you smaller. I still think about that dinner sometimes. The empty chair with no name card. The slideshow that erased me. Standing 3 feet from my mother while she told someone I wasn't there. It still hurts. I don't know if that pain will ever completely fade. But here's what I know now that I didn't know then. Being treated like you're invisible doesn't mean you have to stay invisible. Being written out of someone's story doesn't mean you can't write your own. And choosing to expose the truth, even when it costs you everything familiar, can be the most powerful act of self-love you'll ever commit. My mom organized a family dinner with 47 relatives while I was ignored and treated like an outsider. So I made sure those 47 people and everyone else in our community saw exactly who she really was. Not the perfect matriarch she pretended to be. Not the loving mother she claimed to be on social media. But the woman who valued her image more than her own child. The woman who stole from me, lied to me, and tried to erase me from existence. She wanted me invisible. Instead, I made her truth impossible to hide. And I would do it again. Thank you for listening to this story all the way through. It means something that you heard what I went through, what I had to do, and why I had to do it. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt invisible in your own family or had to make the hard choice between keeping the peace and demanding to be seen, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Share your experiences. Tell me if you think I went too far or if you understand why this was the only way forward. Your stories matter too. And hey, if you want more real stories about people standing up for themselves, hitting back against injustice, and refusing to stay silent, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Because these stories, uncomfortable as they are, need to be told. Thanks again for being here. For listening. For seeing me when my own family wouldn't.